little kids, but kids in grade school can answer that question. Okay, and yet many AI systems, unless you put it as input to them, they don't necessarily have knowledge. So that's not a particularly. So it's actually not easy to. I guess you could do. There is, in fact, it's interesting that you say this because Jan LeCun, who is now currently the head of Facebook AI, he basically is assuming that let's just go from little kids up. Okay, I'm not quite sure why he thinks that's easy. Certain things such as perception and manipulation, we already talked about the fact that human kids learn those first before they learn language and then much later SAT. Right? But beyond that, actually, it's not the case that kids are easy to automate, unfortunately. Anything else that's wrong with? Yes?
It doesn't actually give much feedback.
Meaning what?
Feedback.
Feedback meaning what? I'm not sure. I'm trying to.
It doesn't tell why the AI system isn't good.
That's okay. So that's a very good point. So this is only a test. So there is this very interesting thing. So you guys are all computer scientists. So again, part of this class and maybe a little part of the next class, you will wonder, am I in computer science or suddenly died and went into a psychology class? Okay. So let's say something about computer science. Okay. So for example, we have these things like constructive versus existential proofs. Okay, so when I first came to US, people would say, do you have time? I'll say yes. That's what I thought they wanted to know. I do have time. Now what do you want me to do? But apparently they wanted to know what the time is. Okay, so they were looking for a constructive proof. An existential proof basically just says yes or no without actually showing the entity. The history's most famous existential proof is there a number, an irrational number such that irrational number power irrational number is a rational number. And you can prove it very easily in an existential fashion without actually showing you the irrational numbers. You can go back and check. But so it is true that it is not a constructive test. It is basically sort of, it's just going to say yes or no without giving feedback. That's a good point. But that's what he was trying to just do anyway. Yes?
Wasn't it also bad because sometimes they thought that humans are the AI system?
What?
Don't they sometimes think humans are the AI system?
That's exactly. So again, it does this way of doing, basically this way of deciding whether something is intelligent or not actually goes right into intelligence is in the eye of the beholder. I think some of you may have known that maybe I said it in that talk that there is this idea that at least the version of Loebner test, which is basically Turing test, this guy, a millionaire called Loebner, tried to automate this and actually tried to run this in Boston for a while. And in fact, he would try to have experts sit. And so this guy, this machine or the human will say, we have expertise in a particular area. And I think there's this Shakespeare expertise guy who everybody thought nobody who has a real life would know that much about Shakespeare, so it must be a machine. And even now we say to people under various conditions, oh my God, you're a machine. And obviously that means did we cut down their humanity or did we make machines better than humans? All of this does come into play. And the other interesting thing about the problem with the Turing test is of course that it's only testing a certain kind of intelligence. Okay, we talked about perceptual intelligence. There's not much of that here. We talked about manipulation. There's not much of that here. Emotional, maybe a little bit. Social, not too much either. Even emotional, probably not much. When you're just having a conversation. Okay, so it's basically, so in fact, just suffice it to say that currently at AAI and IJCAI, every year they have like a workshop saying towards new Turing tests that have more of a scope in terms of really testing whether systems have, for example, abilities to interact with humans. That requires a very different kind of intelligence. Yes, there was a question.
I was just going to say, would it be an interesting test to have the AI try to distinguish between itself and a human?
So the AI doing it.
Yeah, AI is
That's possibly interesting, yes, but we don't, but then we have to wait for many, many years before that is possible right now. So, right? Okay. So basically, like I said, Turing test is not reproducible, constructive, or amenable to any analysis, but it's amazing that somebody thought about it in the very beginnings of computer science. The other interesting thing is acting humanly all that important? What has intelligence got to do with acting humanly? How dare we ask this question? We are the only people with any kind of intelligence, and so intelligence must be identically equal to humanity. That's basically what this is saying. Okay, so one other normal criticism about Turing test is doing exactly what humans do may not necessarily be the right thing to do. You may be able to, actually, I guess Spock, is Spock human? I mean, he looks human because the guy who played it is a human actor, but I mean, obviously quite different from what we expect as the human characteristics, and was obviously very intelligent in what he does according to the legend, the other canon, right? So the question then is it actually important to act like humans? And normally this is sort of said to be that's not that important, but actually I would say now that if we're trying to design systems that will act in concert with humans, it's very important that they act like humans. Because we only know how to deal with ourselves. We are the most inward looking of the species. I don't know if dogs think of aliens, do they think of aliens to be like dogs? But if we think of aliens, we still think of them as humans. They might, of course, they'll have slight difference. They'll have 3 eyes instead of 2, and they'll have a smaller head instead of bigger head. They will have 8 hands instead of 4 hands. But pretty much we are impoverished in thinking anything. We never think of like a stone and say that stone is intelligent. This is an alien form, that stone. We can't think about that. Okay, so we are very good at dealing with things that look like us and act like us. And so if you want to design AI systems that will be handled by humans, they better act human. Engineers trying to decide what humans like is an oxymoron. Right? How many of you know the Microsoft paperclip? It's probably too young, but there was a time amazing AI technology was behind that paperclip. Don't ever laugh at it. Okay? Eric Horvitz basically and his group did this amazing amount of AI technology behind that paperclip to find out, try to get your attention and tell you, can I help you, etc. And apparently for a generation of people, all they wanted help was, how do I shut you off? Okay. Why? Because human factors matter. And to act like humans, you actually need to understand how humans act. And people in psychology, people in human factors talk about this. A bunch of computer scientists deciding, I think this is how humans think, because we feel like that. Humans typically like to write stuff in SQL code. Okay, so we'll just develop a better SQL code interface. I'm sure lots and lots of people will use it. Okay, there you go. I mean, you realize that actually search engines took off when they gave up on any connection to database languages. Okay, so there is that aspect. If you completely ignore it, you only ignore it at your peril. That's the thing. So what if you are interacting with the humans? And in fact, there is this project called Cog Project, and I think Kismet, etc. One of the interesting questions is, how do you get humans to teach robots? Now, there is a separate answer to it. Now, if you want AI systems to learn about humans, they can just watch YouTube. And I'm not kidding. Right? Basically, Facebook AI is completely about trying to watch videos and trying to figure out how humans work. Okay, now so actually the interesting thing, I have to make a small digression there. We were having this discussion in one of the meetings, and Jan LeCun was basically of the type that he doesn't believe that evil AI can just organically spring up. I don't believe that evil AI is a big problem either. But neither do I think that it's impossible to spring up. Okay, the tweetbot can spring up. We are extremely good at training things to be evil. We take the cake, right? So we eat the cake. So the question is, one of in a particular sentence he was saying, well, we can learn, Facebook AI will learn all common sense just by watching videos. And a little later you're saying, no, there is no problem with super intelligence and evil AI because we will not have to teach them anything evil. Have you seen YouTube videos? You can't understand what's happening in humanity if you don't understand evil. Do you see what I'm saying? You have to understand malevolence, because all interesting stories, I mean, imagine, it's like only even grade school kids will fall asleep if you try to teach this black and white story of, with no gradation. Everything is like, various adversarial attitudes modulated in various social contexts and so on. And so, seriously, if you learn stuff from YouTube videos, you are going to learn how to be malevolent to humans. Because humans seem to be malevolent to each other, so I too learn it. That's exactly what Taylor Tweedbot found at a very, simplistic level. Now, if you don't have that, if you actually are trying to teach your own robot, just one robot, a large amount of common sense knowledge by just, spending your own time. Imagine, how do you do that? We do it to kids. There is nobody in the world who doesn't like kids. Those people who didn't like kids, they don't exist, because they didn't have kids, and their line got cut off. Okay? Evolutionarily, our brains are basically wired to like kids. And so, if you put nice little eyes and expressive eyebrows, we start thinking, this is a little kid, this is like a human, we can spend tons and tons of time talking to them. So one of these old projects, COG, where they were trying to do robot learning by being told, they basically had a bunch of, gears and wires, but then all they did was they put something which sort of looks like eyebrows and something which sort of looks like eyes. That was enough for people to spend hours talking to this entity. Again, we are using our fallibility of anthropomorphizing everything to actually teach these non-anthropomorphic, non-human entities knowledge. Gamification. Right? Okay? And to do that, basically, COG had to act human. It doesn't take too much for us to think that something is human, but it has to do at least that little bit. Okay? And there's also this very interesting issue that, you have, how many of you have heard of uncanny valleys in graphics? Okay? As you start drawing stick figures, amazing things that I can draw very well, you think this is clearly a human being. Amazing human being. Maybe missing some hands or stuff, but amazing human being. Now if I spend some time and draw a much more elaborate human being, you say, my God, that thing doesn't look at all like a human being. At some point of time, when it becomes closer to reality, your requirements increase exponentially. Okay, and the uncanny valley is not just a problem for graphics people, it's also a problem for intelligence. If you consider something to be intelligent, and as it becomes more intelligent, you might start considering it to be less intelligent. Okay, and so to understand all that, you need to have the ability to essentially figure out how humans act and use that against them. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break and come back.